In the year 2247, the deep space vessel Prometheus hung suspended in the void between stars, 73 light-years from Earth. For 18 months, Commander Sarah Chen and her crew of 6 had been mapping the outer reaches of the Kepler sector, a routine mission, collecting data on stellar phenomena that would take decades to analyze back home. But on day 547, at 0300 hours ship time, something appeared on their long-range sensors that changed everything. It wasn't a planet, it wasn't a comet or asteroid. It was something that, according to every law of physics they understood, could not exist. A perfect sphere, obsidian black, 2 kilometers in diameter, hovering motionless in the absolute darkness between solar systems, defying gravity, defying momentum, defying reason itself. And it was waiting. Sarah stood on the bridge, her reflection ghosting across the viewport as she stared at the impossible object on their screens. Behind her, Dr. Marcus Webb, their astrophysicist, ran the sensor data for the 7th time, his hands trembling slightly as he input the calculations. The sphere showed no energy signature, no radiation, no electromagnetic field. It simply existed, a perfect void in the fabric of space. "Commander," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper, "it's not reflecting light. It's not absorbing it either. The photons just stop right at the surface." Sarah felt ice creep down her spine. In 2 decades of space exploration, she'd seen neutron stars, black holes, quantum anomalies that bent space-time into knots. But this was different. This felt intentional. "Distance?" she asked. 47 million kilometers in closing. At our current trajectory, we'll reach it in 72 hours. Sarah made her decision. "Change course. I want a full scan from 20,000 clicks out. No closer." But even as she gave the order, she knew they were already too close. Whatever that sphere was, it had found them. And deep in her gut, where instinct lived beyond the reach of reason, she understood one terrible truth. It had been waiting specifically for them. For the next 3 days, the Prometheus crept toward the sphere like a moth approaching a flame it couldn't see. The crew worked in shifts, monitoring, analyzing, theorizing. Communications officer Yuki Tanaka sent continuous hails across every frequency known to humanity: radio, laser, quantum entanglement signals. Nothing. The sphere remained silent, unchanging, absolute. Lieutenant James Rodriguez, their combat systems officer, a man who'd survived the Mars Rebellion and never showed fear, started sleeping in his duty station. When Sarah asked him why, he simply said, "Something about it feels wrong, Commander, like we're being watched." She didn't disagree. The psychological evaluations showed stress markers across the entire crew. Dr. Elena Volkov, their medical officer, reported increased nightmare frequency. People were sleeping less, eating less. The ship's AI area detected micro-variations in their behavioral patterns consistent with prolonged anxiety exposure. And yet the sphere did nothing. It simply existed, growing larger in their viewport with each passing hour, a perfect circle of absolute darkness against the starfield. On the 3rd night, at exactly 20,000 kilometers out, something changed. Arya's voice echoed through the ship. "Commander Chen, please report to the bridge immediately. The object is responding." Sarah reached the bridge in 45 seconds, her heart hammering against her ribs. The entire senior staff was already there, their faces illuminated by a soft, pulsing light that shouldn't exist. The sphere was glowing, not with heat or radiation. The sensors confirmed it remained at absolute zero. But visually, to the human eye, it emanated a gentle luminescence, like moonlight filtered through deep water. And then the symbols appeared. They materialized in the space between the Prometheus and the sphere. Not on any screen, not transmitted through any medium. They simply were. Geometric patterns that hurt to look at, angles that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions, colors that had no names in human language. Marcus gasped. "Those aren't random. That's mathematics. Pure mathematics." He scrambled to his console, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. "It's showing us fundamental constants. The speed of light, Planck's constant, the golden ratio. But there's more. There are equations here I don't recognize. Formulas that suggest..." He stopped, his face going pale. What? Sarah demanded. Solutions to problems we haven't solved yet. Unified field theory, quantum consciousness, the mathematical structure underlying reality itself. Marcus looked up at her, and Sarah saw something she'd never seen in his eyes before: terror. Commander, whoever built this doesn't just understand the universe. They understand it completely. We're not communicating with another species. We're communicating with something that exists on a level we can barely comprehend. For 6 hours, the sphere communicated through mathematics, physics, and pure information. It showed them things, concepts that expanded their understanding of reality, while simultaneously revealing how little they truly knew. And then, as ship's time approached midnight, the symbols vanished. The sphere changed. A section of its surface began to flow like liquid mercury, folding in on itself in impossible geometries. An opening appeared. Not a door or hatch, an aperture in space-time itself, revealing an interior that glowed with soft, inviting light. Sarah stared at it, her scientific training warring with every survival instinct screaming in her brain. "It's inviting us in," Yuki whispered. "No," James said flatly. "Absolutely not. This is how every horror story begins." But Dr. Elena Volkov stepped forward, her medical scanner active. "I'm detecting no hazardous radiation, no biological threats. In fact," she frowned at her readings, "the energy signature coming from inside is almost therapeutic. My scanner indicates it would promote cellular regeneration, neural health. It's like it's designed specifically for human biology." Sarah felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders like a physical force. This moment would define not just their mission, but possibly humanity's first true contact with alien intelligence. "We need a plan," she said. "We go in as a team, full protective gear, tethered to the ship. At the first sign of danger, we abort. Agreed?" But even as her crew nodded, even as they began preparations, Sarah knew they'd already passed the point of no return. The sphere had opened, and there was no universe in which humanity would turn away from the greatest mystery it had ever encountered. They crossed the threshold at 0600 hours. The moment Sarah's boot touched the interior surface, if surface was even the right word, she felt reality shift. The interior of the sphere was impossible. It was vast, far larger than the 2-kilometer exterior could possibly contain. The walls, if they were walls, seemed to exist in constant flux, flowing between solid matter and pure light, between existence and absence. And it was beautiful, achingly, terrifyingly beautiful. "This isn't possible," Marcus breathed, his instruments going haywire. "The interior space is folded, like origami, but with space-time itself. We're in a pocket dimension." They moved deeper, their magnetic boots making no sound in the perfect silence. The sphere's interior seemed to respond to their presence, pathways forming before them, dissolving behind them. And then they saw the chamber. At what might have been the center, though direction had lost meaning, a vast spherical room opened before them. In its heart, suspended in nothing, hung a single object, a crystalline structure, no larger than a human heart, pulsing with inner light. Sarah approached it slowly, every nerve ending screaming both danger and wonder. "What is it?" Elena asked. Before anyone could answer, the crystal pulsed brighter and spoke. Not in words, not in sound, but directly into their minds, bypassing language entirely, communicating pure meaning. "Welcome, children of Earth. We have been waiting. You have questions, we have answers. But first, you must choose. Do you wish to know? Do you truly wish to understand?" The crystal's presence in their minds was overwhelming, not hostile but vast, like standing at the edge of an ocean and feeling its depth. It showed them things. Visions poured into their consciousness. Earth as seen from beyond time itself. The birth of their species, the growth of civilization, the struggles, the wars, the triumphs, and beyond that, futures, possible futures, timelines branching like infinite trees. "We are the architects," the presence explained, though explained was too simple a word. "We exist outside your linear time. We build doorways between what is and what could be. We have watched you. You are young, but you have potential. We offer you a gift. Knowledge. The secrets of the universe laid bare. Technology that would advance your species by millennia. The cure for death. The key to transcendence. All you must do is accept. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face, though she couldn't say why. "What's the cost?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The crystal pulsed, and for a moment, something like sadness touched its communication. "The cost is understanding. Once you know, you cannot unknow. Once you see, you cannot unsee. The universe is not what you believe it to be. Reality is not what it seems. And some truths will break you." Marcus stepped forward, his eyes wild with hunger for knowledge. "Show us," he said. "We're scientists. We can handle the truth." But the crystal's attention shifted to Sarah. "Not all of you. Only one may know first. Only one must bear the weight of choice. Commander Sarah Chen, you lead these humans. Will you look? Will you see? And if what you see demands sacrifice, if the price of humanity's ascension requires the impossible, will you pay it?" Sarah reached out and touched the crystal. The universe exploded inside her mind. She saw everything, the fundamental structure of reality, not atoms and particles, but information itself, pure consciousness woven into the fabric of existence. She saw that matter was just thought made solid, that time was an illusion, that every possible reality existed simultaneously in an infinite quantum foam. And she saw Earth, not as it was, but as it would be. She saw humanity's future unfold in 1,000 different timelines. In most, they destroyed themselves. Nuclear war, climate collapse, AI singularities gone wrong. But in one timeline, one perfect golden thread, humanity transcended. They joined the architects and other ancient races in a cosmic community that spanned galaxies and epochs. They became immortal. They became infinite. They became gods. But that timeline required a catalyst, a sacrifice. The architects showed her the price. The Prometheus, the ship, the crew. Everyone she'd led into this darkness would have to stay. Their consciousness would be uploaded into the sphere, becoming part of the architect's network, losing their individual identities but gaining cosmic awareness. They would die as humans and be reborn as something greater. And in exchange, the architects would share their knowledge with Earth. Humanity would be saved. The vision released her. Sarah collapsed to her knees, gasping, tears streaming down her face. Her crew rushed to her side, but she held up a hand, stopping them. "I saw," she whispered. "I understand now." Elena knelt beside her. "Sarah, what did they show you?" Sarah looked up at her crew, her friends, her family for 18 months in the endless dark. People who trusted her, people who'd followed her into the impossible. "They showed me the future," she said, "and they offered me a choice." Sarah told them everything. The architect's offer, the vision of humanity's futures, the price that must be paid. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Marcus laughed, a broken, desperate sound. "So we die, but humanity lives. Our consciousness gets absorbed into some cosmic hive mind, but Earth gets the keys to paradise?" He turned to the crystal. "I accept. Take me. Take all of us. It's a fair trade." "No," James said, his hand moving to his sidearm. "This is insanity. We're being manipulated. These things, whatever they are, they're predators. They feed on civilizations, and we're just the latest meal." "You don't understand," Marcus shot back. "I saw enough in those equations. The architects are real. The offer is real. We can save everyone." Elena moved between them, her voice steady. "Sarah saw the future, all the futures. She knows things we don't. What do you think we should do, Commander?" Sarah stood, her legs shaking but her resolve hardening. She looked at the crystal, at the pulsing heart of impossible knowledge. "Show me another option," she demanded. "Show me a path where we don't have to die, where humanity ascends without sacrifice." The crystal pulsed and sadness flooded through their connection. "There is no other path. The universe requires balance. Evolution demands cost. We offer transcendence, but transcendence is transformation, and transformation is a kind of death. This is the fundamental law. This has always been the fundamental law." Sarah felt something crystallize inside her, a terrible clarity. "Then I refuse," she said. "We all refuse. Humanity will find its own way forward. We'll struggle, we'll suffer, we might even fail, but we'll do it as ourselves. We won't trade our humanity for cosmic wisdom, no matter how seductive the offer. The moment Sarah spoke her refusal, everything changed. The crystal's light turned cold. The sphere's interior began to collapse, or perhaps it had always been collapsing, and only now could they see it. Warning! The architect's presence boomed through their minds, no longer gentle, but vast and terrible. You have chosen ignorance. You have chosen suffering. The offer is withdrawn. You will return to your ship. You will forget what you have seen here, and humanity will face its destiny alone. No! Marcus screamed, reaching for the crystal. No! I want to stay! I want to know! But James grabbed him, dragging him back as the chamber began to distort. The walls bent inward, space-time folding, the pocket dimension collapsing back into normal space. Sarah's crew ran, stumbling through impossible geometries as the sphere ejected them. She saw her people ahead of her, saw them reaching the aperture, saw them tumbling back into the Prometheus. And then she saw Marcus break free, saw him turn back, his eyes wild with desperate hunger. Marcus, no! But he was already running toward the crystal, reaching out, his fingers brushing its surface. For one instant, Sarah saw understanding bloom in his eyes, absolute, terrible, infinite understanding. And then he was gone, not dead, erased, as if he'd never existed at all. The sphere sealed itself, the aperture vanished, and the Prometheus was thrown backward by a pulse of energy that defied measurement, hurled away from the sphere at impossible velocity. Sarah woke on the bridge, her head pounding, her memories fractured like broken glass. The crew was scattered around her, groaning, stirring. Aria's voice crackled through damaged speakers. Commander Chen, you've been unconscious for 17 hours. We experienced a massive energy surge of unknown origin. Multiple systems are offline. Recommend immediate damage assessment. Sarah pulled herself to her feet, every muscle aching. Something was wrong, something important. But when she tried to remember, her mind slid away from it like oil on water. Report, she croaked. What happened? James sat up, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. I don't know. We were investigating an anomaly. And then, nothing. Elena checked her medical scanner. Neural disruption across the entire crew, consistent with exposure to high-intensity EM fields. But, she frowned, there's something else. Memory gaps, specific surgical gaps, like something was removed from our consciousness. Sarah felt ice crystallize in her veins. Where's Marcus? The question hung in the air. Her crew looked at each other, confusion clouding their faces. Who? Yuki asked. Sarah opened her mouth to answer and realized she couldn't remember. Dr. Marcus Webb, their astrophysicist. She knew his name, knew his position, but when she tried to visualize his face, there was only emptiness, like trying to remember someone from a dream. She pulled up the crew manifest on her console. 6 names, including hers. 7 had left Earth. Aria, she said slowly, how many crew members are currently aboard this vessel? 6, Commander. Yourself, Lieutenant Rodriguez, Dr. Volkov, Officer Tanaka, Engineers Chen and O'Brien. And how many left Earth? 6, Commander. For 3 days, Sarah searched. She found evidence of a 7th crew member scattered throughout the ship like ghosts. An empty bunk that felt wrong. Equations scrawled on a datapad in handwriting she recognized but couldn't place. A coffee mug in the galley with a name that had been erased. Literally erased, as if reality itself had reached in and deleted it. But when she showed these things to her crew, they saw nothing unusual. The bunk had always been storage. The equations were generic. The mug was unmarked. Only Sarah seemed to feel the wrongness. You're experiencing post-traumatic stress, Elena told her gently. We all are. We encountered something out there, something that hurt us. The mind creates false memories to fill in gaps, to make sense of trauma. But Sarah knew better. Whatever they'd found in that sphere, whatever choice she'd made, it had cost them. It had cost them someone real, someone important. And the universe had rewritten itself to hide the loss. On the fourth day, they found it. The sphere was gone. Not destroyed, not moved, simply absent, as if it had never existed. Long-range sensors showed nothing. No energy signature, no spatial distortion, just empty space. "It's over," James said, relief evident in his voice. "Whatever happened, it's done. We can go home." But that night, alone in her quarters, Sarah found something. A photograph, tucked in the back of a drawer she'd never opened. 7 people in the photo, 6 she recognized. The 7th was a blur, a smudge of pixels, like someone had tried to erase them, but hadn't quite succeeded. And on the back, in her own handwriting, "Some prices are too high, some knowledge too dangerous. We chose to remain human. Was it the right choice?" She had no memory of writing those words, but she knew with absolute certainty that they were true. The Prometheus turned toward home. 8 months of travel lay ahead. 8 months to process what had happened, to heal, to try to understand. But Sarah found herself unable to let it go. She spent her nights reviewing the sensor logs, finding gaps and inconsistencies. 17 hours of missing data. Spatial coordinates that made no sense. Energy readings that violated known physics. And always the feeling that something important had been taken from them. That they'd paid a price they couldn't remember. The crew adapted. James returned to his combat drills. Elena focused on keeping everyone healthy. Yuki sent messages back to Earth, carefully worded reports that mentioned an anomaly investigated, nothing found, mission continuing as planned. But Sarah noticed changes, small things. The way Elena sometimes set out 7 coffee cups instead of 6, then looked confused and put one away. The way James occasionally turned to speak to someone who wasn't there. The way they all sometimes paused mid-sentence, searching for a name that wouldn't come. 3 months into their return journey, Sarah made a decision. She gathered her crew on the bridge and told them everything she'd found. The inconsistencies, the evidence of erasure, the photograph of 7 people. "Something happened to us out there," she said. "Something was taken, and I think we chose to forget, but I need to know. Do you want to remember? Do you want me to keep searching for the truth, even if that truth might break us?" Her crew looked at each other, silent communication passing between them. Finally, Elena spoke. "No," she said softly. "Whatever we lost for a reason. You made a choice, Commander. We all made a choice. Let's honor that choice by moving forward." They reached Earth orbit on a Tuesday morning. Ship's time. 10 years had passed on Earth due to relativistic effects. Families had aged, the world had changed, but humanity endured. As they docked at the orbital station, as technicians and officials swarmed aboard, as questions were asked and reports were filed, Sarah found herself standing at the viewport, staring down at the blue marble of home. They'd found something out there, something impossible, something that had offered them everything and demanded a price they couldn't pay. She'd refused. She'd chosen struggle over transcendence, uncertainty over cosmic certainty, humanity's flawed beauty over alien perfection. And someone important, had paid the cost of that choice. She would never know who. The universe had erased them so completely that even grief couldn't find purchase. But sometimes in her dreams, she saw a face, blurred, indistinct, smiling. Was it worth it? She whispered to the ghost she couldn't remember. And from somewhere deep inside, beneath conscious thought, beyond the reach of the architect's erasure, an answer came. Always. Because that was the truth the architects would never understand. Humanity's power wasn't in transcendence. It was in choosing to remain human, even when godhood was offered. It was in accepting loss, embracing imperfection, and finding meaning in the struggle itself. They had encountered infinity, and they had walked away. "Commander Chen," a technician stood beside her, data pad in hand. "They're asking for your final mission report." Sarah turned from the viewport, from the home they'd saved by choosing not to save it, and smiled. "Tell them," she said, "that we found nothing. Empty space. The universe is vast and mostly empty, but it's ours, and that's enough." 6 months later, Sarah Chen stood in her backyard, looking up at the stars. The nightmares had faded. The gaps in her memory had scabbed over. Life had returned to something approaching normal. The Prometheus mission was filed away as inconclusive but valuable. Thousands of data points collected, nothing revolutionary found. Her crew had scattered to new assignments, new lives. They rarely spoke of what had happened. There was nothing to say, and yet sometimes she would look up at the night sky and feel it. The vast presence that had touched her mind, that had shown her infinity and demanded everything. The architects were still out there, still watching, still waiting for humanity to be ready. Or perhaps they'd moved on, disappointed by the species that chose ignorance over enlightenment. She liked to think they understood, that somewhere in their vast, incomprehensible intelligence, they respected the choice that had been made. A shooting star streaked across the sky. Sarah watched it burn. "We're not ready," she said to the universe. "Maybe we never will be. Maybe that's okay." Behind her, the lights of the city glowed warm against the darkness. 7 billion people, living and loving and struggling and dreaming, none of them knowing how close they'd come to transcendence, how close they'd come to losing everything that made them human. Sarah smiled. Tomorrow she would wake up and live her life. She would face challenges and make mistakes. She would grow old and eventually die, her consciousness fading into the same darkness that had birthed it. No cosmic upload, no digital immortality, no transcendence. Just the beautiful, terrible, glorious struggle of being human. And deep in space, 73 light years away, a perfect obsidian sphere hung in the darkness between stars. Empty now, waiting, always waiting, for the next species, the next choice, the next moment when evolution stood at the crossroads between what was and what could be. But Sarah Chen would never know that. She had forgotten. They all had forgotten. And that forgetting was itself a kind of grace, the universe's final gift to those brave enough to refuse its greatest offering. She turned from the stars and walked inside, where coffee waited and morning would come, and life, in all its messy imperfection, continued on. In the end, that was enough. That was everything. And somewhere in the spaces between thought and memory, in the gaps that couldn't quite be filled, a ghost smiled.